Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. You would think for as many times as we have had new Playday on Shakesyear that I would have come up with a new Playday theme song by now, but I have not, alas. I'm sorry. If anybody else wants to write one, go for it and please send it to me and maybe we'll put it in. But I gotta say, there's really only like 4 new Playdays left before we get to the end of the official canon, but there's still the sonnets and the Apocrypha and all that sort of stuff. So Shakesyear will live on for a little while. But anyway, it is new Playday and we get to start in on Timon of Athens, which yesterday, at the end of yesterday's video, I called it Timon of Athens. I have heard it as Timon of Athens. I believe most British people call it Timon of Athens, and the scansion throughout the play sometimes feels like it should be Timon or Timon. Like it's a little bit all over the place. And even so much so that in the title of the play, as it's written in the first folio, Timon is spelled T-Y-M-O-N, but his name throughout the play is spelled T-I-M-O-N, which is also, we're just going to go with Timon, T-I-M-O-N, which is why we're doing this now instead of after 12th night, because we're not going to go with the T-Y, we're going with the T-I. Anyway, since we're alphabetical. Anyway, this is a play. It's not performed very much, and they think that it might not have even been performed very much like back in the day because, well, endings, spoilers, all that sort of thing. But to me, it feels a little bit like if you took the phrase, neither a borrower nor a lender be, and took it to its most extreme. But anyway, we'll get to all of that in just a little bit. So, Act 1, Scene 1. The play's called Timon of Athens, so of course we're in Athens. And we start out outside Timon's house. And Timon is like a nobleman, gentleman, whatever, in Athens. And we're outside his house where a poet, a painter, a jeweler, and a merchant walk into a bar. No, they're hanging outside his house because they each have things for Timon. And they're talking to each other a little bit like, what do you have for him? What do you have for him? Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. And they start to notice like all these other senators and stuff like that showing up around Timon's house. And the poet, who we get to hear from today, is like, yeah, look at all these people just like flocking to him. That's not necessarily going to last forever. And the painter's like, I don't understand what you're saying. So the poet says, I will unbolt to you. You see how all conditions, how all minds, as well of glib and slippery creatures as of grave and austere quality, tender down their services to Lord Timon. His large fortune, upon his good and gracious nature hanging, subdues and properties to his love and tendance all sorts of hearts. Yea, from the glass-faced flatterer to Apomantus, that few things loves better than to abhor himself. Even he drops down the knee before him and returns in peace, most rich in Timon's nod. So what he's saying is that everybody, sort of regardless of social standing, flocks to Timon to bring him things, to give him things, to suck up to him, essentially. And it's because Timon is known as being extremely generous, which shortly after that, there's a little bit more conversation between the 4 guys, which 4 persons, you can cast them whatever genders you want. I do think that it's interesting, and this is going to come a little bit more in like the wrap up, that none of these characters have names. It's just poet, painter, jeweler, merchant. And then we also get like senator, and we also get like servant and stuff like that. There's a lot of sort of unnamed characters in this play, which also speaks to like the stereotypes that they're supposed to represent, which might be why this didn't land as much with audiences, or maybe I was too like beating a dead horse with audiences, all that sort of back in the day. Anyway, whatever. Just interesting to note that so many of these characters don't have actual names in the play. But as they're talking, the poet gets around to the fact that, he's talking about how everybody flocks to Timon because Timon is known for being so generous. But he eventually gets around to, if Timon's fortunes ever change, are the friends really going to stick around? But then we get to see some examples of Timon's generosity. He comes in with a messenger, one of his friends or somebody that he knows, I believe Antidius, has apparently been jailed for some reason and needs bail money. So Timon gives the bail money. And then an old man shows up and he's like, you have a servant named Lucilius. And Timon's like, yeah, I do. Come here, Lucilius. And it turns out Lucilius is in love with this old man's daughter, but the old man doesn't like it because Lucilius is not of high enough standing and won't be able to provide for the daughter. So Timon gives Lucilius all kinds of money so that it's fine if he marries the daughter. Like there's no more issue with him being able to support her, all that sort of thing. And then Apomantus, who was referenced in the monologue today, Apomantus is like a professional cynic that lives in Athens. Oh, to have that job. But he shows up and starts sort of talking about how stupid all Athenians are and how ridiculous everybody is, and especially how ridiculous everybody is for, kissing Timon's butt all the time, essentially. And they're like, oh, come on, but we're all going to go to dinner. Do you want to come to dinner with us? And he's like, no, I don't eat with senators and all that sort of thing. Like, ugh. And then there's some sexual innuendo type jokes. And then a messenger comes in to say that Alcibiades, who is like a military figure who Timon knows pretty well, is coming in. And Alcibiades shows up and he's like, oh, how are you doing? I'm so hungry. And Timon was like, okay, time to eat. Everybody come in. And literally everybody goes into Timon's house except for Apomantus to enjoy this big dinner that he just shares with everybody because he's a generous man and he can do that, and he thinks that everybody deserves all of the stuff. So they all go in except for Apomantus, who's standing outside by himself when like 2 more lords come by and they're like, oh, we got to get in on this dinner at Timon's. Apomantus, are you going too? And he's like, not on anybody's life. I'm not going near that dinner. Like I wouldn't touch it with somebody else's mouth. And those 2 lords go into the dinner and Apomantus stays outside. And that's the end of Act 1, Scene 1. I mean, when was the last time we had a play that only had 1 monologue in Act 1, Scene 1? It's another interesting thing about this play. The beginning of it has a lot like snappier dialogue. Towards the end, we get into bigger monologues, and I think it's like Act 4, Scene 3 will be in there forever. Oh, one more interesting thing to note. Shakespeare in the first folio did not delineate act and scenes. We've run into this before. So if we go by Shakespeare's first folio, the entire play is Act 1, Scene 1, but just for the sake of breaking it up into more manageable chunks, we'll go with like the traditionally accepted act scene delineations, which is why I'm saying we're done with Act 1, Scene 1 at this point. But anyway, yeah, so that's it. We have Timon, who is extraordinarily generous, and the rest of Athens wanting to ride his coattails and take him for everything that he's got. So everything's going to work out perfectly fine, right? Right? Tune in tomorrow for more. Mwah.